Hello, people. Welcome to Main Event Boxing Talk, and I'm your host, Nathan. I've got my co-host here with me, Tom. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing well, Nathan. How are you?
Very good, yeah. Right, let's kick off then. We just find the list very quickly.
So I think
It was Amanda Serrano retains her titles and adds the IBO belt. Did you see this fight?
yes, I did. It was an exciting fight. Her opponent had a very strong chin and hung in there, but Serrano was faster and a better boxer and eventually stopped her with a body shot. I mean, she hit her cleanly in the head a few times, but she couldn't get her down. The girl was tough that she was fighting.
What next?
What did you think of it?
I didn't get to see it.
I think Serrano could take Katie Taylor, to be honest. I mean, I know that might upset you over on your side of the pond.
No, she's not British, is she? She's Irish, so I don't really support.
Well, she's from the United Kingdom, isn't it?
No. Republic of Ireland is separate, and Northern Ireland is, because she comes from Republic of Ireland, so she's nothing to do with Britain.
Okay, well, I'm sure you would adopt her if she won, right?
You know what? I've never been a big fan of her. I think she's good, but she just fighting style's not my cup of tea.
Okay, fair enough.
But in women's boxing, can we be honest about it? The competition's not really there, is it? In women's boxing at the minute.
Well, it depends. There are some great female fighters.
You either have great female fighters or not all the rest are not that great. I just don't think the talent, but I think it's going to be another 10, 15 years before we, 10, even 20 years before we see, good 10, 15 years before we see it to the level of the males, I just don't think the talent's out there. Once you've got the top three. Hello.
I don't think, I think more women would go into mixed martial arts because more women take martial arts than boxing, nowadays.
Yeah.
But there isn't the same amount of money, I don't think. Serrano used to be a mixed martial artist. But it depends. It's not, I think more and more women are getting into it. I don't know if they'll ever be on the competitive level of some of the, top female boxers that have been around over the years. But it's true. Really dedicated, excellent female boxers are not as plentiful as males.
I'll give you an example. In the 90s, I think it was the mid-90s to the late 90s, or even like 98, we had a woman champion called Jane Couch. She made hardly any money from boxing. Nobody recognised her really. Nobody really knew who she was. But she had a bit of talent, but she wasn't of the level of a Katie Taylor, nowhere near that level.
That's true. There was some good ones back then when it first started, but there weren't many female boxers. Don't forget.
How long ago is it that Ann Wolfe fought? 25 years ago when she started?
Oh, we're going back to the early 90s, I think.
Yeah, and also Layla Ali in the mid-90s, wasn't it? So the late 90s.
Right, but there was also Ann Wolfe, who was also just, killer.
Oh, yes,
she was very tough. And some of the people that came from Europe, I forget their names, but there were a lot of great fighters coming out of there.
I don't think women boxers...
but there wasn't a lot of competition.
No, I don't think... But today's... The top competitors of 22, 23 years ago probably wouldn't be up to the standard now of the top women, And that's no disrespect.
Wolfe would have stood the test of time.
Yeah, and Layla Ali, but not anybody else. I think Savannah Marshall would have beaten Layla Ali quite handedly.
Well, there were other great ones. There was the coal miner's daughter. What was her name?
Can't remember now.
Hold on one second, because my friend Jill started, the female boxing division for the WBC way back when. And when you look at it, Layla Ali was there. Mia St. John was pretty good. And Natasha Ragosina was tough. We had Salande. Giselle Salande, and she was from Trinidad. Holly Holm, remember she beat she beat what's her name in the mixed martial arts, the
Ronda Rousey,
the one who was a great judoka,
Heather Hardy or something. Heather Hardy.
No, Ronda Rousey.
Ronda Rousey.
She handed her her first loss. Yeah, Christy Martin was tough. Ann Wolfe was tough. Regina Halmich. Layla Ali, like you said. Celia Breakus.
Right, anyway.
Lucia Riker was a pretty badass, too.
We should move on now because you've only got an hour, so... Right,
yeah.
Estrada has been upgraded to the franchise champion. Super flyweight champion.
That means he can fight whoever he wants.
Pretty much, yeah, because you don't have any mandatories with a franchise belt.
Yeah, so that means, you know what, you did great. You make as much money as you want. Go ahead, go for it. Because what'll happen is if he doesn't follow the rules, they would have to strip him, and they don't want to strip him.
I think the franchise champion is just a waste of time, everybody's time, personally.
You think so?
If you're a top elite fighter, then I guess it makes sense. But, I don't know. I just don't think it's fair. You can't have a franchise champion. I mean, make a WBC super champion and then just have a WBA regular, like the WBA did. I don't understand the need for a franchise.
Well, I understand it. Let me tell you why. Because we're always talking about the best fighting the best, right?
Yeah.
And one of the problems of the best fighting the best, we have two problems. We have promoters, and we also have title organizations. When a guy becomes a franchise champion, you want him to be able to fight anybody. So you're not going to enforce all those rules on him. Now, yeah, I mean, granted, he is Mexican. The WBC is located in Mexico. But it's a good move. It's a good move because it gives them the ability to go fight anybody they want, according, if they could get past the promoter, the promotional barriers. So it's good in a way. And then and these are basically for guys that are pretty much elite fighters. So I don't think it's a bad idea. It's good for business. So much has been bad for business in boxing. Even in New York now, the New York State Athletic Commission has been preventing the opening of boxing gyms for fighters to train. Yeah. Other athletes are allowed to train. Gyms are open, but they wouldn't let boxing gyms open.
If you're with the WBC right now, they ought to make Tyson Fury the franchise champion. Personally, I believe it would have made perfect sense. Then somebody else could have fought for the actual belt. And then, do you know what I mean? Then we could have had another world title fight. To people
right. Well, I don't think that's Tyson Fury's fault. I don't think it's the WBC's fault. I think Tyson Fury was waiting to see if he would have the rematch with Wilder. That fell through. That got drawn out. And then this whole negotiation with AJ. And don't forget, if they hook up with AJ, if this thing comes off, all the title organizations are going to get a nice chunk of change. So, why would they want to strip the champions for that?
So what will happen is whoever wins out of the Joshua Fury fight will be then named franchise champion, and then Wilder can fight whoever wins out of Dillian White and Povetkin or whatever, or the nearest ranked contenders.
Yeah, well, Wilder has choices. He could go to Bridgeweight, or he could stay at heavyweight. It's really up to him what he wants to do. Right now, he just needs to fight. He needs to get
anyone at any level, even a guy who's ranked 100, just come back and get a win.
Right.
And also, with in this article, which was taken from Boxing Scene, they say they're going to have. They've named. There's a 4-man Superfly tournament they want to do.
Right. I read that.
Because Sorung Vasai.
And that's good.
So Sorung Vasai will be fighting for the vacant WBC belt at some point this year.
Now that's good because we have these 3 fighters that are all excellent fighters, and they're going to, one way or another, they're all going to fight each other, and that's what the fans want. Chocolatito is a very close fight. I still think Chocolatito is underweight for this division.
He needs to go.
He should drop down. But it was close. You could have given the decision to either guy. And then you throw Soren Visai in there, and he's a wrecking machine. So, anything can happen in any of those fights. So it's good. So it's good business all around. That's what I think.
Soren Visai, he doesn't always fight the best opposition. Between the big fights, he'll always fight really weak. Whereas guys like Chocolito, I notice they fight better guys more regularly. Obviously, him being based in Thailand, there isn't that great competition time, that way.
Yeah, well, why should he travel and all of this stuff? He has enough people there are enough fighters in Thailand he could fight and keep in shape.
In Thailand, the quality of fighters is not, they're either fantastic or they're really awful. It's like in Britain, the fighters are either really good or they're really awful. There's no in between, really, in Thailand.
Well, I think it's similar in it depends on how you classify awful. You're talking about guys that last 2-3 rounds and they check out.
Yeah, and they check out. Yeah, you know the typical kind of guys that look like they've been pulled off the street.
Well, let's look at it this way. In those countries, a lot of those countries are very poor.
Yeah.
And those guys that are fighting, they're doing it just, for the money. They know they're going to lose.
It reminds me of when the WBU belts, do you remember the WBU belts? They were defended frequently.
Yes, I do.
It's like there were no rankings, so they'd probably go to someone in the street and said, to a tramp and said, do you fancy fighting for a world title? It's like getting anybody off the street, would you like to fight today? And the answer is, yeah, give me a packet of cigarettes and I'll fight. We live in a crazy world.
It is what it is. It's business. Everybody's got to make money. Everybody's got their hand in the pot. It's not like it was back, the 80s and before. Once Showtime and HBO split and Mike Tyson went with Showtime and you had promoters fighting each other and title organization, it became crazy. That's when it started. Okay. What do you want to talk about now?
Keith Thurman is targeting a comeback fight in July. He's targeting Andre Berto or Devin Alexander.
Oh my God!
Let's be honest. Berto,
you should be able to handle both of those guys at the same night.
Yeah.
You should be able to beat both of them in the same night.
They're both shot to pieces. Both those guys are so fast shot, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
Devin Alexander.
I don't know. I think Manny Pacquiao took some of his confidence. What do you think?
Possibly, yeah, but you don't become a bad fighter. Keith Thurman was never a bad fighter. He just lost to an all-time great.
Well, I agree, but he's also been stymied by a couple of injuries that kept him out. He's a great athlete. At one time, he was a very strong puncher, but his career the last few years he's been delayed by injuries,
stagnated,
and then coming back. And his luster has faded.
Since he won that, he was world champion for 5 years, right? So as soon as he won the world title, he's had some tough fights, hasn't he, over the years? The last 5-6 years.
Yes, he has. I thought Danny Garcia beat him.
I have to be honest.
He had another close fight. Was it with Porter?
I still think he will win a world title again if he comes back and not against.
Well, it depends. It depends on how much he trains.
But he still has a big say in this division,
He's marketable. He could make money.
He lost that fight really easily to Pacquiao. Pacquiao destroyed him.
I don't think Pacquiao destroyed him.
But he exposed. He didn't expose.
It was a close fight.
Thurman wasn't at the level we thought he was. That's all it was.
Yeah. Well, he's fighting an all-time great.
Oh yeah,
that's awkward and fast.
But the way I look at it, someone who, like a Pacquiao, shouldn't be performing at this level now. He should be long. He's had so many sort of losses and he's always come back strong. He's a one-off.
Pacquiao's a rare fighter. Pacquiao came up the hard way. He came up in the Philippines dirt poor, fighting everybody.
But I remember
he didn't have good training when he was younger, and
I remember when he was a super featherweight champion or super flyweight, whatever it was. And I remember him when he went up before Oscar De La Hoya. Was that 28 or 2009 or something? When? Or something, or 2007?
I don't remember exactly when it was.
It's the mid-2000s. It was about around the mid-2000s. Then I remember when he fought Miguel Cotto in 2009. and then had that run where he lost to. What was he lost to? We lost to Margarita, not Margarita. Where he beat Margarita, where he beat Margarita.
He beat Margarito, and then he was going back and forth.
And the fact that he went up as far, nearly up to middleweight, light middleweight or super welterweight, was pretty impressive, really.
Right.
Right.
It was a disappointment with him and Floyd. What are you going to do?
Look, at the end of the day, he's had a career probably a decade longer than what he should have. To be honest, that's just my opinion.
He's a great fighter.
Yeah, but he should now walk away from the sport, I believe. He doesn't need. He's got nothing more left to prove.
Well, I don't know what his money situation is. He bleeds money.
Yeah, it's foolish, man. Right, the next thing we're going to talk about is Inoue will be fighting Michael Dismarinas on June the 19th. I can't pronounce this one.
Where is that?
That's in Las Vegas.
Here it is.
Las Vegas.
Let me see that. I don't know if I saw that one. You mean Inoue?
Yeah, Inoue, yeah.
Oh, well, okay. He's the monster, right?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this guy, Dismarinas?
No, because he's basically unknown. Let me type in Inoue's.
Where is he from? It looks like he's from the Philippines, so he's probably pretty tough. He's won 30 fights with 20 KOs, with 2 losses by knockout.
Yeah.
He lost the split decision and was KO'd by somebody, Marban Badiogan, back in 2012. So he's been around.
Yeah.
He's been a pro for a long time, and he has a good record. So, but I don't see any big names on his resume. And he's going up against the guy who's a really solid fighter.
Thing with Inoue, obviously he hasn't fought for 6-7 months. There'll be a little bit of ring rust there. I mean, he's a very good fighter. He's more or less cleaned out the division.
Well, he had a hard time with, what's his name? Donaire. That was close. Donaire broke his eye socket.
I'm surprised he didn't get Donaire out of there, to be absolutely honest.
Well, Donaire rocked him and also messed up his eye, don't forget.
Yeah, it was an amazing fight.
Yeah, so he's vulnerable. I mean, he's strong. He's a good, solid boxer. He punches hard with either hand.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have, Donaire had world-class experience.
Yeah,
Donaire really
didn't really have any experience, did he, really? Going into, he only won a couple of, fights. He had such a lot of success in such a short space of time. Inoue did,
Right, because he had dramatic knockouts.
Yeah, when he beat, what was his name? The British guy, when he beat Jeremy McDonald in one round, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah. He's a tough guy, so I'm sure he's training. I'm sure he's going to be in shape. He has a no-quit attitude. He has the mindset of a champion, too, and he has a good killer instinct. Yeah. It should be a good fight with this guy. We'll see how he holds up. The guy he's fighting is tough. I could tell by his record.
The thing that impresses me about Inoue, if you could knock out a guy who's defended his belt 7 times in one round, that's pretty impressive. I'm not saying Jeremy McDonald was elite, because he wasn't, but, it was a good win, then.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Inoue should do this.
Right, let me go to the
Now, what do you think about this thing that Dillian White, what's going on with Eddie Hearn talking about, a loss is unthinkable here, for Dillian White?
Yeah, it is, yeah. But to even think that, if you even think you're going to lose, then if you think that about your own fighter, then really, what are you doing promoting him? If you don't believe in your own fighter. To me, it's like Eddie Hearn's kind of written him off.
Well, I agree. It's like, what's his name? The other...
Anthony Joshua.
Not Anthony Joshua, Frampton, right? Yeah. He says he'll retire if he loses this fight to James Herring. Right?
If you've got that kind of mindset, what the fuck are you doing in the ring? Seriously.
Yeah, you wouldn't even think about retiring until, the time it came for you to make that decision.
No,
you
that
can't
means
go into a fight
you're not
that.
sure you're going to even win. So what are you doing in there?
I agree. But it's Eddie Hearn saying that, isn't it?
Yeah. But if his own people are saying it, to me that's just undermining Dillian Whyte a little bit, isn't it?
Well, are you taking it out of context? I mean,
possibly, but I'm just thinking, it's common knowledge. If he loses, he won't be in a pay-per-view fight for another 2 years.
he won't have a title shot.
But he hasn't got that same. I don't think you can market, Deontay Wilder in the Derek Chisora way, where you keep coming back, getting defeated, come back and recycle. He hasn't got that recyclability the same as Chisora has,
Right. Well, how much do you think he could change and adapt at this point with Povetkin? I mean, Povetkin has the momentum going in. Yeah. Don't forget, he was hurt twice.
There's nothing he can really do other than all he can do. The only thing he didn't do, which was wrong in the first fight, was he didn't take him out. If he'd hurt him, gone for the knockout, like if Dillian Whyte fought the normal way he fights, which is roughhousing people, he would have got him out of there. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't get him out of there in the first 3 or 4 rounds, it's over. He'll get knocked out late in the fight. Because Povetkin knows he can hurt Whyte at any time in this fight. Or buzz him at all, any time he wants to. So,
well, they could hurt each other. They're both strong punches.
So Dillian Whyte.
It depends on how bad COVID was for Povetkin.
If it was super bad, then he's not going to win. Because there's no way you can get over it that quickly and get to full recovery again that quickly.
We'll see.
He was in hospital.
I still think Povetkin has the psychological edge.
I think Povetkin will probably win it again, even though I'm a fan of Dillian.
Right, because both myself, and Spencer predicted it.
Yeah. But the truth is, this is a fight Dillian Whyte should win. He's lost all that weight, it looks good, but it won't count for anything because his defence he's easy to hit. If he was easy to hit as that, Povetkin will do the same thing again. He may even knock him out quicker. If Dillian Whyte goes in there and loads on him, why doesn't he just empty the tank and just go for the knockout? In the first, after the 2 rounds.
He's got to be careful. He's got to correct the mistakes he made from the last fight. Don't forget, because the game plan will be similar.
But he hasn't got the tank to go the 12 rounds without getting knocked down in that fight. I don't believe he has to take him out. If I was instructing Dillian Whyte, I'd instruct him there, go in there the first 1 or 2 rounds, then just empty the tank and go for the knockout. And if you get knocked out, that may be his only chance of winning this fight. Is to go in there, empty the tank and just knock him out.
Well, that's assuming Povetkin is 100%.
If Povetkin's not 100%, then you go after him and you take him out. It's simple, isn't it?
Povetkin looks a little soft to me in the weigh-in.
So he obviously hasn't trained like he should have done. So there you go. To me, there's the question mark. So if he's not in shape, he will lose.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. I'm going to favor Povetkin, pending that he's okay.
Yeah, if he's not, then he'll get.
We don't know.
This is a 50-50 fight.
Yes, it is. I thought it was a 50-50 fight last time, and he hurt Povetkin.
And it was
twice, didn't he?
But we have to remember, Povetkin was getting his ass kicked up to that point. He was getting badly at.
Yeah, but he didn't give up.
He came back because he's proved his pedigree time and time before. Even when he fought Anthony Joshua, he was winning that fight. Right, let's move on. Right.
So Rivas and Jennings rematch, huh?
This is for they say this will be at Bridgerweight for the WBC Bridgerweight title. I don't think, looking at the form box, Jennings. Let me have a look at Michael Jennings' record.
Michael Jennings has lost a couple of times. I think Rivas has the momentum going into this fight.
He'll definitely win. Let me just look.
I think Michael Jennings. Didn't he lose twice already?
No, Bryant Jennings. For God's sake, what am I on about?
Brian Jennings. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did.
He has 2 losses.
Yeah, but those losses were, they weren't bad losses. The loss, he was beating Rivas up until the last round, and that was 2 years ago. He lost to Joe Joyce in a very close fight, So he has got some good wins to him, But he hasn't won a fight for 3 years.
Right. And he was KO'd by Ortiz.
Yeah.
Klitschko KO'd him. He's always failed against top opponents.
Yeah.
And Rivas is coming on strong again,
Rivas is at
I think that's going to be a good one.
Let me have a look at Rivas. So yeah, Rivas won his last fight about earlier this month. So, and the fact that Jennings hasn't fought for 2 years will be the difference as well.
Yeah.
Kevin Lerena
where is he originally from? Is he from?
He's from Colombia.
He's from Cuba.
He's from Colombia.
Well, Colombia.
So,
Colombia, yeah.
In the WBC rankings, let me go to the WBC Bridgeweight rankings. Bridgeweight rankings. So Kevin Lerena was number 2, Jennings is 3, and I don't know why Kevin Lerena's turned it down. That makes no sense. You've got Arthur Spilka, Isaac Chamberlain. There's a lot of people on it.
Chamberlain, okay.
Isaac Chamberlain.
Yeah, well, it's going to be entertaining. I think Rivas is going to edge him, this time.
Yeah.
I think Rivas has got more experience now and is coming on. So Brian is going to have to be really on top of his game now.
I don't think Jennings has got the power to knock him out or hurt him. That's the thing. He's never had the top power, Jennings. And the funny thing is, Rivas nearly dropped White, and he nearly beat him.
Yes, he did. You're right. When you're right, you're right.
So this Bridgerweight belt thing, I can't hide my disdain for it a little bit. I think it's a good idea to a point. It's like we don't need any more division.
I mean, when you got a guy like Tyson Fury who's 6'9",
yeah, it doesn't.
And Anthony Joshua's what, 6'6" or 6'7"?
Yeah.
These guys are huge and they're coming up against guys. Look at Mike Tyson. If you stood next to Tyson Fury, what that would look like. Mike Tyson's 5'10" and a half.
It'd be a bit ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say he couldn't bust them up in the body. He beat tall fighters.
But shouldn't
but
they?
Just when you're pushing 280 and you're 6'9" or 6'8", it's crazy.
Shouldn't they have just made the cruiserweight limit another £10?
I think they should have pushed that to 210 like maybe 210 or 210 or 220.
Yeah, if they then you wouldn't need this silly division.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Again.
Let's see what else. Yeah.
Well, it's about more matches, fairer matches, more.
Yeah.
I think there's probably more talent in those lower weights.
There is, yeah.
In the Bridger weight than there would be in the super heavyweights.
But not marketable people. Arthur Spilka is not a marketable name.
No, he's not. He's not. And, I don't know. We'll see if it survives. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, you can make a title there, and then if the guy wants to move up to heavyweight and fight, that would be good. Some people will say, "Oh, you should step up and fight heavyweight and go fight Tyson Fury or the next giant." What was that Russian who was like 7'2"? That
Nikolai Valuev, David Haber, Nikolai Valuev.
Yeah, I mean. It's ridiculous, You're fighting a guy that David Hay didn't David Hay fight him?
Yeah, he only just about beat him though. To be fair, the guy was too big for him.
I mean, you want to have it to be competitive with guys, the same weight.
But to be fair, size. Nikolai Valuev wasn't very good, was he? Really, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't the best.
No, he was just huge.
If he'd been a normal-sized man, there's no
him.
way he would have even won a world title. Only because people didn't know how to adapt to it. How do you train for a 7'2" guy?
Right. Well, we'll see how this plays. It'll be interesting over the next couple of years. I'm sure we'll still have this podcast.
Yeah, of course we will. Yeah.
And we'll be able to look back on it.
Let's go on to our last thing we've got scheduled. We're at the 30-minute mark.
Carl Frampton?
Yeah, we've already discussed that, though, that he says he's going to retire, so we can move on to the last thing, which is Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, well...
has been mandated by the WBC to fight Javier Fortuna, who is a former WBA champion.
Well, Fortuna is tough. He's a tough guy. And Garcia's last fight, he got dropped, didn't he?
Yeah.
By your man over there.
By Luke Campbell.
I don't know why he couldn't finish him.
Luke Campbell.
It's like...
Look, Luke Campbell is a good fighter, but he just age caught up with him. That's just all that happened, Garcia is a good fighter.
Right, but when you get a guy hurt like that, it was almost like, he didn't jump on him, if I recall correctly.
He let him recover when he should have kicked one in there and knocked him out. He didn't even bother.
It was almost like, I'm sorry I knocked you down. It's like...
As the adage goes in boxing, knock your opponent out before they knock your fucking head off. Basically, it's not where's that killer instinct in boxing? If you haven't got that killer instinct, you don't belong in the sport. If you don't smell blood and finish your opponent, we've seen it so many times in boxing fights. A guy will bloody someone or have them hurt, and they'll go in for the kill and they'll finish it. You can't leave opponents languishing around for more than what they need to be.
Right, exactly. And speaking of killer instinct, hold on a second. I'm going to switch over to Facebook to our site over there, your site rather.
Yeah.
Mainevent.
Yeah.
I like to say our because I'm in the group, but you're the originator.
No, but it's ours. So.
You're the man who started all of this. So. Speaking of killer instinct, come on. My internet connection sometimes drives me crazy.
Sure.
Here we go. So there's a couple of young fighters that were on a little while ago, and one of them is Jose Valenzuela. This kid has punch, man. He doesn't look like it, but I watched a video of him today where he knocked down Lopez Jr., the current lightweight champion, in sparring. He drops him.
Jesus.
He's really an up-and-coming guy. You should watch those highlights. These three fighters are all in there, like, truly going nuts.
Yeah. Are you about tomorrow?
You should watch all three of them.
Because are you acting tomorrow? Because I'm going to put on the fight, I think. I'm going to pay for the fight.
Right, I'm talking about on the website right now.
Yeah.
Look at this guy Valenzuela. Also, there was an undercard from NBC Sports with a great fight on it with Angel Fierro and Alberto Machado. It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
So watch those two videos because you'll really like them.
Okay, I shall have a look.
Yeah, because we're talking about dramatic knockouts and dramatic fights and killer instincts. You're going to see it there.
I shall have a look. And
for sure.
What else?
You're going to see it. You want to look at it right now while I got
No, I'm fine. I'll look at it once we get off.
Well, it was a good show today.
No, we've still got a little bit more left. Oh, yeah, we
do? I thought we were done.
Let me look for one more thing. Is there anything that you've seen this week that you wanted to discuss?
Well, we're talking about Gilberto Ramirez is calling out Arthur Beterbiev, which I think is be careful what you wish for.
Oh, yeah. The thing with Gilberto Ramirez is I've not been that impressed with him, to be honest. He's good, but he doesn't do anything great, does he? He's a middle of the road kind of guy, I believe.
Yeah, and he's with Oscar De La Hoya, and I think Oscar De La Hoya is doing this thing of trying to build up a big money fight with Gilberto, and I think Beterbiev would put some hurt on Ramirez.
I think Golden Boy are on the slide. They really don't have a lot of influence anymore, really, do they? Not really. Not like they did.
No, and when they lost Canelo, that was their big guy.
That was their golden ticket, their meal ticket, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they have Ryan Garcia, don't they?
Yeah. But he's
taking younger Mexican fighters and Latin fighters and getting them fights. With Canelo, that was just Canelo outgrew everybody. That's what happened. Yeah. Like Floyd did.
Yeah. I know that Oscar and De La Hoya and Canelo are not on good terms right now.
Well, what are you going to do? It's business. He wasn't fighting, and Canelo got into this whole marinating thing, and it was calling for weight cuts and this and that. It made Canelo look bad, honestly. And Canelo's very prideful. He does want to fight good people. He has.
But the problem is,
my anger at Canelo was more directed in those days to Oscar De La Hoya and all the bullshit Oscar De La Hoya was pulling.
The problem with the whole thing with Canelo was that he'd been fighting for years before we'd any of us seen him, and it's just hard, isn't it? Sometimes being a promoter, in this current climate, it's tough for any promoter. Even Canelo turned around and said that Eddie Hearn was the best promoter he's ever had.
Well, good. Well, yeah, he's put together a couple of things for him, but Oscar just played too many head games. Especially with GGG, with all of the stalling and all of the other stuff. And hopefully Canelo will never test again for clenbuterol. Or Saunders won't for their match, have anything funny in their system to blow it up.
Don't think that fight happens. I just got a funny feeling. Billy Joe Saunders' track record is pretty terrible.
The tickets are on sale today for some of them. The 20K tickets already sold in one day.
20K, bloody hell!
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think Tony Harrison could come back in his next fight against Perella?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, he's an excellent fighter, Harrison.
Didn't he lose his world titles? I forget. Or did he?
He lost it to the He won it from. Jermel Charlo, and then lost it in the rematch.
Yeah. For me, he's one of these guys that had his success very late in his career,
Yeah.
He's 35, isn't he? Or 36 or something like that. Harrison's not a young fighter.
Right, but he's an excellent boxer, though. Yeah. And speaking of older fighters, Tyson confirmed he would fight Holyfield on May 29th.
Oh, God. What do you think of this? It's interesting to see.
I think Mike Tyson is in better shape now than Holyfield. I think Holyfield's a lot slower than Mike is right now. I think Holyfield is shop-worn. I don't think Mike is as shop-worn as Holyfield. But, Holyfield, you want to talk about killer instinct?
Oh, he's
got it.
The only problem is, I just think that these guys, they're only fighting because they need the money. And let's be honest, if you're thick enough, I don't mean that. If you're silly enough to blow for $300 million, then really do you deserve another chance? It doesn't resonate.
Well, you're talking about Mike Tyson, or you're talking about Holyfield?
Both of them have wasted their money.
Okay. All right. Well, Tyson, listen. He does not need the money, really.
No,
he has a thriving marijuana business, okay? He has a thriving marijuana business and endorsement business. So he's back in the millions. But no, he would love to make, 30, 40, 50 million dollars. Holyfield is in more trouble than Tyson is.
Yeah, the problem is that apparently Tyson turned down a £25 million deal for the fight. And he could probably get 50 million for this fight. So Mike Tyson made 20 million from his fight, 15 million from his fight with Roy Jones, which has made him a multi-millionaire. So
why is he? wait a minute. Why is he doing it for the 29, or did they come up with a different figure?
I think they come up with a different figure. But I read 25.
I mean, what does it say here? They don't talk about the gate. I don't see the gate here.
But each man is going to want at least 30 million each for this. Then that will tide Tyson over and, sort him out financially properly, Obviously, then that'll give him more money to set up more weed farms or whatever, or sort his family out because his daughter plays tennis,
Well, yeah, but some of this is don't forget, some of this is going to charity, right?
Yeah, not all of it. He'll be keeping some of it as well. At least 8 million of it as well. But I don't begrudge
so
it.
Yeah, Tyson wanted 25 million.
Yeah.
And they wanted a 50-50 split.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Whatever. Evander Holyfield was just having a lot of kids out of wedlock.
He had about 11 kids.
That's why.
But one of his sons. But what does it say if you're fighting in your late 50s because you've blown all your money? And this isn't it kind of sad that you've got people who are in their prime 30 years ago, and there's no more interested in them than there is in Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. Then we've got a problem, haven't we? If you've got these older guys who are not relevant anymore, and more popular than the guys now, it doesn't say much about boxing, does it? And you've got YouTubers coming through it. It doesn't look good for boxing for me. That these old time.
Well, it's not boxing. It's the boxers themselves, and they don't handle money well, and they don't have people that can help them. And sometimes they'll say, the hell with it, just give me my money.
But we're in a different era. When it's not 1996 anymore, it's Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and all the other top guys, Michael Hunter, It should be about them. It shouldn't be about people from 30 years ago, Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but look at the Klitschko's. They're good. They were good with their money. A lot of fighters were good with their money.
It's not about the money. It's just we don't need to be seeing people that were good 30 years ago fight now. It doesn't do anything for their legacy.
I get your point. I was reading about how he lost his money.
But for the legacy, it was nice to see Tyson come back one last time.
Look at it this way. Yeah. Let me say this. People still go see the Rolling Stones, right?
Yeah.
And this is like a geriatric band. So, what are you going to do? They love the Rolling Stones, right?
Yeah, but we're talking about boxing, mate. We need to stop focusing so much on boxing's past. We need to concentrate on the future of boxing. Do you agree there's too much emphasis on the past of boxing? For my liking,
I do, but the only way you're going to get that interest that you had in the past is let the best fight the best and see great bouts. Guys that will rise above. Right now, it's Tyson Fury and AJ. They want to see that heavyweight division. They want to see these guys fight each other. They want to see somebody
whether
dominate.
Like it or not, the heavyweight division is the best we've seen in 25 years. People, I'm not even surpassing Lennox Lewis, is it? Even the last 23 years, this is the best deal we've had in 25 years. Since Tyson came back, the most talented division. Right. And we're in a golden age and people are not enjoying it, like they should. It just frustrates me as a younger fan, not a younger fan, but as somebody who grew up. I just think we need to focus more on boxing's future. Boxing's past is great, but it's not. It's been and gone.
Well, in the lower weights, there have been some great things with Floyd and Manny and Miguel Cotto and those guys. They were good fighters.
They all were. Even Muhammad Ali was a great fighter, but his time has been and gone, and he'll always be remembered. I just think we look at boxing's past with rose-tinted glasses. And I'll probably do the same thing in 20 years when I talk about Joshua. Oh, the old days, Let's just appreciate what we have now.
I agree.
So when somebody says to me, do you remember this?
When somebody says what?
Do you remember this guy from the 70s? I'm like, no, not really, because I didn't grow up watching. I find it hard to resonate with a lot of boxing's past.
Oh, well,
You know, I know it exists. I like it
from the 50s, and what? Say that again.
It doesn't resonate with me because I didn't watch a lot of that stuff. I only watched stuff from the 80s and 90s. So anything before that, I watched a little bit. But you know, do you know what I mean? So it's like sometimes you could talk to me about a fight from the 60s and I won't know who you're talking about.
Right. The only thing I'm saying is that back then, you know, you could see boxing on TV.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes when I was a kid in the 50s, they would be on 4 times a week, or in the 70s and 80s, you had ESPN, USA, and HBO, and Showtime all showing fights. And these guys fought each other. That's the difference.
I agree. Okay? The Sugar Ray Robinson, people like that.
Right.
But at least the
anyway,
we better end it there then.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
We better end if I'm going to stop recording. Stay on the line afterwards. Thank you for coming on the show today.
All right.
Let me just end the show.